Hello, Dharma friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. Would you please place your hands together and join me in Gasho? Kimyo Jinjipo, Mugeko Nyorai. I take refuge in the Tathagata of unhindered light, filling the 10 quarters. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Naman Dabbutsu, Naman Dabbutsu, Naman Dabbutsu, Naman Dabbutsu, Naman Dabbutsu. Well, thank you again for joining me. It's been a little while, and I still miss being able to see you in person. This weekend marks the beginning of spring officially, and here in Phoenix, Arizona, we're in that sweet spot where the temperatures are just right. Uh, not too cold, not too hot, kind of like the Goldilocks zone, right? We get to spend time outdoors, enjoy flowers blooming, and seeing leaves return to trees. And it won't be long before we're in our swimming pools and enjoying our backyards. And not too long after that, it starts to get a little hot. Usually during spring, though, we also find times to be together. And that is still, of course, a little difficult right now with the pandemic. But hopefully that'll be passing soon. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is hope. So spring is also a time for renewal and hope. So I think this is all just very appropriate right now. Just know that I miss you tremendously and can't wait to see you again. So today I'd like to share something with you that's a little bit different. It's a letter that was written between Shinran Shonin, our founder, and one of his followers named Kyoshin. And as a reminder, Shinran, he lived in the 12th and 13th centuries of Japan, and he lived a long life up until the age of 90, which was nearly unheard of during that time in Japan because it was not so easy to reach old age, so to speak. It was a time of warfare and famine and even pandemics, so not too different from how we're living right now. But they lacked the modern conveniences and technology that we have. So it was very difficult to be alive during those times. So to reach 90 is absolutely incredible. So you may know that Shinran, he spent quite a bit of time traveling. And so he would spend some time with followers and then find himself in a new location. And in order for his followers to stay in touch with him, they would write letters. And those letters would go back and forth. Usually the letters would be questions seeking clarification on doctrine, on the Nembutsu teachings, and those sorts of things. But occasionally the letters would talk about what was going on in their local towns and provinces, wishing Shinran well, just regular things that we would all write in letters too. And I actually encountered these letters based off the recommendation of another minister that I'm working closely with. He's my teacher at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and he encouraged me to actually dig into the collected works of Shinran. So this large book right here, many ministers have. This is so big I actually hit my table as I was picking it up. But in here, it contains pretty much all the writings that Shinran ever wrote or anything that's attributed to him. And within it is actually the Kyogo Shinsho, which is considered to be the magnum opus of Shinran. So his great academic writing about the Nembutsu teachings. However, a little bit further into the book is a collection of letters known as the Mato Sho. And this is the lamp of the latter ages. And these letters were written, I want to get the dates right, between 1251 and 1260. And at that time, Shinran would have been anywhere between the ages of 79 and 88. So he was entering the twilight years of his life. And so these letters are incredibly important, and it was a great way for his followers to stay in contact with him. So one letter that I'd like to share with you was written by his follower Kyoshin. And I think at the time, Shinran must have been in Kyoto when he received it. And the letter, we don't have a year for it, but it was dated October 10th. And in this letter, Kyoshin is actually expressing his gratitude to Shinran for the teachings that he was able to encounter in his life. So he's saying thank you to Shinran for many things. But then there's some interesting things that Kyoshin writes that I feel that we could all relate to. So I want to share some of those with you right now. So towards the end of the letter, Kyoshin says to Shinran, "How joyful and how grateful I feel. So that is in relation to receiving the teachings from Shinran. And then he writes this: nevertheless, distracted by the business of everyday life, I tend to be negligent for hours at a time. So I think what he's trying to say there is that he can't always concentrate on the teachings. We think as Buddhists that we have to keep the Nembutsu forefront in our mind at all times and always focus on the teachings of Shinran or Shakyamuni Buddha. And he acknowledges that because he's so busy with everyday life that he tends to be negligent of those teachings for hours at a time, not for just brief moments, but hours at a time. And then he continues, still, whether day or night, it never slips from my mind, and there is only the act of rejoicing in Amita's compassion. So even though he gets distracted by everyday life, he still acknowledges that it's there, it's present. So it doesn't mean that he forgets the Nembutsu teachings or forgets to say Namo Amida Butsu. It's just that he's negligent sometimes because he's so busy, but then it comes back to him. And then interestingly, he says a little bit later, the Nembutsu is not a daily routine for me. I wonder if this is wrong. So even though Nembutsu stays within Kyoshin's mind, he acknowledges that in addition to being busy, sometimes it's not a daily practice for him. And he's wondering if it's wrong. How do you feel about that? Do you encounter the same challenge in your everyday life? It's quite amazing to me that a follower who is so grateful to Shinran for his teachings or sharing the Nembutsu teachings with him would then go on to say that he gets busy, he gets negligent, and it's not an everyday routine for him to say the Nembutsu. It's quite interesting to me. And he also acknowledges, hey, maybe I'm wrong here. He concludes this letter to Shinran by asking a question about doctrine. And at the beginning of this message, I actually recited a different name that can be used for Amida Buddha. So as Buddhists, as Shin Buddhists, we are accustomed to saying Namo Amida Butsu. However, there are other ways to say the Nembutsu, to recite the name of Amida Buddha. And one of those ways is Kinyo Jinjipo Mugeko Nyorai, which translates to I take refuge in the Tathagata of unhindered light filling the 10 quarters. So Kyoshin asks Shinran if it's wrong to say this version of the name versus Namo Amida Butsu. And Shinran replies to him that Kinyo corresponds to Namu. Mugeku Butsu is light. It is wisdom. This wisdom is itself Amida Buddha. Shinran tells Kyoshin that it is completely acceptable. It's okay to use this version of the name. Shinran does not criticize Kyoshin for being busy, for being negligent. He does not criticize him for Nembutsu not being a part of his daily routine. He just reminds him that it's okay to say the name, and it doesn't always have to be Namo Amida Butsu. It could be other versions as well. So I find that quite refreshing coming from a teacher who doesn't seek to correct him and say, shame on you for the Nembutsu not always being, the most important thing in your life. Shame on you for letting other things get in the way. Shinran does not say that. He just corrects the question about the version of the name that people can say. As simple as that. So, the very end of Kyoshin's letter, he actually says one other thing that I wish to share with you. And this part touched me deeply. Although I stayed in Kyoto for quite a while, so I think this refers to when Kyoshin had an opportunity to be with Shinran in person, I was continually rushed without a moment's peace. I regret this now and desire above all to return with no other business but to be with you. that I am moved to say this is all due to your benevolence. So, Kyoshin managed to spend some time with Shinran in Kyoto, his teacher, but he was so busy taking care of other matters, whatever they were, or maybe visiting other people or taking care of business, that he couldn't spend a lot of time with Shinran. And he only wishes that he could be able to go back and be with Shinran. And the fact that he feels this way is because of Shinran's benevolence. So which tells me that, again, even though Kyoshin must have been busy when they were together, Shinran wasn't worried. Shinran didn't think that Kyoshin had to come and sit with him and discuss things all the time. The time that they had together was precious to Kyoshin, even though it was a little bit. And even though he's regretful that he didn't get to spend time with Shinran. And again, in Shinran's reply to Kyoshin, he never once said, like, shame on you for not spending more time with me. The reason why this passage touched me so deeply is because there is a part of me right now that wishes more than ever, and even with a little bit of regret, that I could be with all of you in person. I miss our time at the temple. I miss our potlucks. I miss preparing for Matsuri. I miss just having conversations with you. I miss seeing our Dharma school students and seeing them learn and learning what they're doing outside of temple with their lives. I just miss having time with all of you. And even though we come to temple and we attend service and do chanting and meditation and listen to Dharma talks, it's those other times that are really important. And I miss those times. So I'm looking forward to when we can rejoin together, be with one another. And even though our lives tend to get busy, I hope that we make some time to be with each other and just enjoy each other's company. So that's it for me for today. I hope you're all doing well. I can't wait to be able to be with all of you again. It's been a long road, hasn't it? But I feel that we're almost to the end of that road, so it shouldn't be too much longer. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. And would you please put your hands together and join me in Gassho one more time. Kimyo Jinjipo Mugeko Nyorai. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Dabutsu, Naman Dabutsu, Naman Dabutsu, Naman Dabutsu. Thank you, everyone. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.